Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. So I've switched things up tonight. Now I'm no longer at the top left corner. That way, I don't have to look at myself the whole night or look down to see Tom. Speaking of Tom, who is directly above us, welcome.
Hello there, Kevin. Well, good evening.
How are you doing, Tom?
Doing well tonight, doing well. Ready to relax the rest of the evening and definitely get past all the political ads and all that kind of stuff. It'd be nice at the end of the week that this will all be over with and somebody will be president. We don't know who, but somebody will be president next year.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. By the way, I'm announcing the beginning of 2024 election ads will happen on Wednesday. That's when they're going to start campaigning, Wednesday. So,
please no.
Yeah. I'm actually, with the way that things have progressed, I am expecting that at some point there will be people who will declare for not the upcoming term, but the term after. So, like people throwing in their hat for 2028 and starting advertising that in 2028, vote for me. I'm expecting that to happen pretty soon, given the way that things have sped up considerably in the last few decades. So, got that to look forward to.
Yay! More political ads.
Welcome in, Anders. And hidden off camera, although if you squint just right, you might be able to see her, is Mala Mahadevan. How you doing, Mala?
I'm fine. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
So we have a schedule that is to some extent packed. Loosely packed, maybe, but definitely packed. Speaking of political ads, here's our political ad. TriPass board elections are coming up. There are 3 open positions. If you want to run for one of those positions, talk to me by November 10th. One of the ways that you can talk to me is emailing me, shoptalk@tripass.org. Another way is by sending me a message on Meetup, or, however else you want to get in touch with me. So if you're interested in running for one of those board positions, come and have a chat.
Do it. It's a great experience. You learn a lot. You get to meet a lot of people. So do it. Come on, join us.
Get to deal with my ill-natured, mercurial personality. So you got that to look forward to. Also, I have no other announcements.
Not unless if you get voted out, though, they wouldn't have to deal with you.
That is true. If you do run for president of TriPass and you do beat me, then you will not have to deal with my ill-natured mercurial personality. That's a fair point.
So
you would have to deal with TriPass.
Yep. Which can be fun, and it could be very different because who knows what's going to happen in the future. COVID, non-COVID, meeting in person, meeting not in person. We got money. We don't have money.
Pass running out of money. Pass
running out.
Money.
Yeah. So all kinds of things. So
Andrew says a life goal is to beat me at something. Just pick up any video game. I'm sure you'll beat me.
Yeah.
Although I am pretty good at Minesweeper.
All right. Enough about political, right? Next, yeah. Kevin.
Enough about political. Let's talk more about Minesweeper. So that was our one advertisement for the night.
I thought you was going to have a second advertisement for the night.
No, so this is technically a segment. We are going to talk about Pass Summit. Pass Summit is next week. This is technically not an advertisement because I promised that we would only have one advertisement. Pass Summit next Monday through Thursday.
It's through Friday.
Through Friday, yeah, you're right. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for sessions, Monday and Tuesday for pre-cons. You can still sign up. I will drop a link in chat if you have not yet signed up. And if you use our discount code, which is LGDISCWY7, if you need that, it's in chat, or check out the show notes, shoptalk.tripass.org, and I have pretty consistently dropped the link, dropped the code in there as well. So we've got several people from TriPass who are doing sessions. Tom's got 2 of them. You've got your recordings done, Tom?
Yes, I did finish them. I turned them all in Saturday. I had one done a week. By the deadline, I had one done, and then it took me a week more to get the second one done. But they're done. They're in.
Yeah, that's cool. I finished up my last demo for the pre-con yesterday. So that'll give me a full 6 days for all of my demos to suddenly break.
Well, did you use the new Azure Labs so you wouldn't break it?
This is IoT Edge, so everything's running in Docker containers.
Okay.
Yeah, I could tear this thing apart. I'm running on Raspberry Pis plus Ubuntu VMs. So I guess Azure Labs could spin up Ubuntu VMs, but that whole process isn't that complicated. So
how many Pis do you have?
Just the one.
Just the one. Okay.
Yeah. So multi-deployment scenarios, I'm going to focus on VMs instead of Pis, but I only needed one to do my job.
Cool.
So check that out. Pre-cons, I think you can still sign up for pre-cons at this point.
What day is your pre-con?
Monday.
Monday, okay.
So going up against some good people on Monday. There are some really good pre-cons this week.
I am going to go hear Mr. Isaac Ben gone. So see if I can pick up. I know I'm gonna pick up a lot of stuff on T-SQL, advanced T-SQL.
Yeah, his asides are learning experiences. It's interesting, fascinating, and a little bit frustrating because he'll just like throw out something and you say, wait a minute, you can do that? And you spend 2 hours and you learn, you can do that. Why did I not know this before?
So the thing about E6 that really frustrates me is that the man goes like lightning when he teaches. He's very fast. It's because he knows so much, and he can slow down and be very effective that way, but he packs so much into his fast and he goes so fast that without a recording at the end of the day, it's really hard.
Are we getting a recording of those guys or no?
No, we're not.
No, so the rule is that they're going to have, so the pre-cons will be recorded for a 72-hour period for people who are not able to make it in person. And then the recordings are destroyed after that.
Huh. So you take a recording of the recording? Is that what you do?
No, pre-cons will be live. They're not recorded. So they're not pre-recorded. There will be a recording of the pre-con for 72 hours.
But as you're listening to that recording, who says you can't record it?
You could if you were all skeezy. It's like the person sneaking a camcorder into a movie theater. You can be that guy.
Yeah. But I paid for it. I'm not getting a manual, or maybe they are. Are you giving a manual this year? Or are they going to download the manual like they normally do, the little book that you can follow through? That maybe you can print off and then you can take notes with? Is that going to happen?
I mean, you'll get the slides. I would imagine they're not going to send you bound copies.
Well, no, I don't care about the bound copy.
No, from what I know, mine is specifically, I asked Hugo and Rob because they are the only 2 people teaching me. They're both going to be sending out PDFs that you can print out and follow along.
Oh, great. Because that's what I really need is I need a PDF. Because
don't talk about recording or anything, Tom. It's going to get very controversial because I know you won't, but I'm just saying that they're not going to like that at all. So
no, I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I've got all the manuals from years past of the pre-cons that I've taken notes in, and
Yep.
Right.
I regularly pull out my availability group one.
Yes,
It was
the
so
one that
good.
Paul Randall taught me also. I used it for years, and I just 2 months ago I gave it to Mark
Hmm.
when he asked for something. It was excellent. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was like a textbook, although it was just a printout of the slides that he used.
Yep. Yeah, and I've
Cool.
got one from Itzik from prior years that's full of handwritten, scribbled notes.
Well, and then Isaac will start off on math too, because you start thinking about how to solve things in mathematical equations. So
Yep.
at least the class I was in with him years ago, I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I was coming into a math class.
Yep. So that's conference number 1 I want to talk about. Conference number 2 is Data Platform Summit, which is going on at the end of November. And there are pre-cons and post-cons for that. I've dropped a link to it in chat, and if you use the code Triangle SQL, Triangle SQL, you will save a good bit of money from any training general sessions or pre-cons or post-cons that you go through there. I am delivering a post-con on Python and SQL for forensic accounting. That is going on. I actually just recorded my session today for Data Platform Summit. So had the fancy green screen in action versus just being a very smooth looking green screen. Big difference, just putting a couple of clothespins at the bottom really smoothed that thing out. Now it looks so much fancier. And Mala, you dropped something in chat that I forgot to mention to ask you about for Past Summit. So let's go back to Past Summit for a second. I caught her in between activities.
No problem. Sorry, Tracy, myself, and a few other people are on a diversity and inclusion panel on Friday at lunchtime at 12 o'clock at the summit. So if you are attending the summit, please make time for us. And, it's an interactive thing. It's not like an in-person thing. So if you want to participate in the chat and say you know us or you're from the triangle area and such, all that is completely fine and would be appreciated, in fact. Also, I wanted to say, in addition to Hitsig, my friend and awesome SQL Server execution plan guru Hugo Cornelis is also doing a pre-con, and it's going to be really good because he really knows his stuff. So you could consider that too if you really want to learn about execution plans.
Right, and his is also on Monday, as I recall.
Yes.
I would definitely recommend to anyone that these pre-cons are cheaper than what you would pay if we were in person.
Right.
And I would definitely recommend anybody to take up on that full day of pre-con, because you just gain every year. I gain more information technically from the pre-con day than I do the rest of the summit.
Also, another tip is that if you've already registered for summit and want to do a pre-con, the only way to sign up is to call them.
Correct.
So please call. The 800 numbers on your registration, so just call. And they're on Pacific time.
You're calling. I'm like, nope, I'm too millennial for phones.
You can email.
You can do just pre-cons too, if anyone's thinking that, and you can't spare 3 days at the summit. It's totally okay to just do a day-long class.
Yeah.
What's it? Is it still $250 for a pre-con, or did they go up?
It's 300, I think now.
300 now for a pre-con.
And Andrew says the strategy, the pro tip from a man who's done it quite a few times. You go to the pre-con to learn, you go to summit to get ideas and to network. I think that's right. I mean, it's
correct. Yeah.
A friend of mine, Eugene Meidinger, has his whole hierarchy of ways to learn. And it's everything from you take a 1 hour introductory video on a topic, or you watch a video on YouTube to learn about a thing, to learn that there is a thing and to see where it fits in. And you can dive deeper in, and blog posts and tutorials will kind of teach you the mechanics of how it works. And eventually, books and long form papers, white papers, will teach you how to master the thing or how to get the most out of the thing. So there's definitely a multimodal strategy for learning. And podcasts, same thing as videos, where it's just, I'm going to tell you about a topic. You're not going to really understand the nuances of the topic after the video, unless we're talking about a very long training where you're also interactively working with the same problems. But if it's a 20-minute, hey, here's a thing, in most cases, you're going to become aware of, but not really familiar with the technology or the topic.
Mm-hmm.
I actually read a blog post recently on figuring out the rolling upgrade from one of our very popular people out in the network, and I won't say his name because I'm not going to be real nice about it, but his blog post was basically so generic that if you needed something, you need to call him to hiring as a consultant. There wasn't enough information there, no links to any other articles or anything like that, which granted, he's a consultant, he needs to make money, but is also we connect, share, and learn. So that's what the whole community's been about. So
Anders is trying to goad you into saying it, but
nope, I'm not going to goad it into saying who it is. Just remember that I've been doing distributed AGs, and that will maybe help tell you who it was. So
yeah, there's a fine line. It's interesting that our community, I think, is one of the really few communities that expects information as a matter of course. So let me give you a contrast. My wife is an MBA who has a CPA and probably other TLAs as well, but we're going to focus on those two. As part of her MBA training, they don't get training for free. You got to pay for that follow-up training. As a CPA, those continuing learning credits, you got to pay for those. You don't get those for free generally. Usually the company's paying for them or you're paying out of pocket. So there actually was a guy in the SQL community who down in these parts, I want to say he was out in Georgia or Mississippi or Alabama, one of those three states, which I know is a very broad space, but he also had a CPA and was building the learning credits because you can give this stuff away for free in the SQL community. You can give it away for free in any technical community, programming groups. That's kind of the expectation that, what do you mean you're going to make me pay you to get this information? That doesn't seem right. But outside of this world, everywhere else, the expectation is, well, yeah, I'm providing you a service, so I expect payment in return.
Well, it's nice from the standpoint of, and I agree with you, Kevin. It's nice from the standpoint of our community has been, we help each other. And that's the good part. Like if someone has an issue with encryption, they'll come talk to me and I'll freely give them the information. I'm not going to turn around and say, well, you need to pay me XYZ dollars before I'm going to help you with encryption.
Yeah. And, there's...
honestly, that has pros and cons, and I totally get that. But I wouldn't be where I am if every person I went to asking for advice were to charge me for it.
Oh, I would not.
I've been in lots and lots of spots where I really didn't know, you know, technology changes so fast, and you can be handed a lot of situations where you don't know the answer to, and you're trying desperately hard to figure out. This is the first job I have where I have some really smart people at work who most of the time, and even that is not 100% of the time, even that issue I had some time ago with the drivers being outdated for SSIS, nobody knew that could have been the reason why. And we spent, like, I spent 2.5 months with that thing. So, but that is rare. And most of the time, somebody around me knows it. But that's only at this gig. At most other places, people don't know. And the only way to get help is to ask somebody. And you can't pay for a problem you have at work. There's no way you can do that or come up with your own money to do that. So I owe a lot to this community. And because of the free knowledge people were willing to share with me and help me through.
And I agree totally with you there, Mala.
Yeah.
I owe the community a great deal of debt. I wouldn't be where I am today without the community.
Correct.
The other thing you forgot to mention as a big plus to the summit itself, not the pre-cons, but the summit itself, is the CAT team's going to be there, and you can go ask questions of them and get your answers of issues that you're having and get them answered. And I'm not sure how much the pre-con's currently costing, or not the pre-con, but the regular sessions are costing. But isn't support now about $500 an hour if you call Microsoft directly?
Mm-hmm.
So, I at least normally get, I don't have any this year, but I at least normally have 2 to 3 questions I always get answered every year when I go to Summit. So it's worth paying that just to get the direct contact into the CAT team, because then you're not having to go through, when you call support, you got to weed your way through and try to get to the people that really know. Where at Summit, because you got the CAT team there, you got the people that know. You don't have to go try to weed your way through and get to the right people.
Yep. One of my favorite Summit experiences actually was working with Bill Priachuk and Scott Shaw, who were both at Hortonworks at the time, and Murshad over on the CAT team, and just going back and forth between the two because I was trying to get Polybase working on my laptop. So I went over to one. I'm like, okay, how is this working? How is this not working? And we'd work through it for a while. I'm like, all right, well, go over to the other desk. Rashad, what's going on here? And then he'd show me, you got to do this, this, and this. Oh, okay. Well, now I'm getting this error. Go back to the Hortonworks desk. All right, guys, why is this going wrong? Oh, we got to do this, this, and this. Okay. Then go back to Rashad. Okay, we got this far. Why is this not working? And just going back and forth in a time when, if I tried to do this by email, probably wouldn't work at all. But just having that ability to go talk to those different groups of people, and that was what got me really on the track for Polybase. So it had some nice outcomes as a result.
I know I've told my boss that, I don't know how many thousands of dollars I've saved not calling Microsoft support because I was able to get the answer at Summit. So
no, and the thing with calling Microsoft support is that 8 out of 10 times, unless it is something very, very specific, you will not get proper answers.
Correct. I agree with that.
It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. And to my mind, I've had very few positive experience. There are situations where they can help, and typically where it has helped for me is if a service pack or if a patch or something goes wrong, and you want to roll it back and you can't, or it is some weird issue that you're not sure about. That is where they can come in handy. They can help. But otherwise, I don't know.
Well, we had an issue a couple of years ago actually with encryption, and we actually had our CPUs were like, it was basically we were having wait states that that I'd never seen in the wait states that was waiting on encryption to complete.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened to be that, I'm not very good at reading things. I normally experience things versus read things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not sure that I was not aware at that time that technically there are two versions of Enterprise Edition. There's the one that's unlimited cores, and then there's the one that's only 20 cores, or whatever
Yep.
they want to call that. So
Yep.
there's really two versions of Enterprise. Well, we had loaded the 20 core. We had not loaded the unlimited, and we had upped the core limit on our server to like 24, 28 cores. And all of a sudden, encryption, because it was trying to use those 8 extra cores that SQL couldn't see, it basically just plummeted. And I tried to resolve that through the help desk, couldn't really get an answer. We solved it, by playing around and doing things with it. We actually solved it, but and I blog posted on it too, because I was like, when I was unaware of it, and probably if I'd ever become fully certified, I probably would have known that or forgotten it, one of the two. So
Yeah, and there are comments in chat along these lines. It's basically, it really depends on who you hit. Like,
correct.
There's enough people who know enough about this that they could hear the problem and say, "Oh, check this thing." But getting to that person can take you quite a while, because you have to go through several layers of people who really don't know,
Right.
and are there
Right.
to filter out the most obvious problems.
And that's where, of course, you and I know, and hopefully everybody on this call knows, but that's where Twitter, you got to use Twitter, pound SQL help. And that's better than a Microsoft call any day of the week.
And goes
Mm-hmm.
back to the previous point that, hey, we're expected to give away our information for free. It's
yeah.
And I don't say this in a negative sense. I come at this. I spent enough time in academia that I appreciate it. I appreciate this complete willingness to share. Hey, I learned something interesting, or hey, I think I can help you solve your problem. So I'm all for that. I just find it interesting that, it's hard to get from, okay, I've given enough information, but now I have to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a fine line that the blog post Tom is talking about earlier, probably on the wrong side of that line. And at the same time, I suppose there's the argument that I can give you all of the information. I can tell you everything I know about performance tuning, and it still could make sense to hire me to come in. Because, again, that you read it doesn't necessarily mean that you grok it.
Well, and that's part of the point, that if you're willing to help me to try to understand it, and then I don't understand it, but I get a good grasp that you do know it, I'm more likely to hire you to come help me versus someone else to
If
come
you
help
have
me.
budgetary authority.
Yeah. Huh?
A lot of DBAs don't have that budgetary authority. Like, I can't hire a person, even for a few hours.
But you can make a recommendation.
True.
That
is true. Sometimes, I don't think pretty sure I've never actually gotten a recommendation through, but that could just be me.
I've gotten my recommendation through twice. It has actually worked for us twice. Same person, but it's worked for us twice.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. All right.
You just don't have enough pull, Kevin. Come on. You got to get some more political pull at work.
That is likely.
So I want to state Grant's example here, who came in to teach us last year at Channel Advisor. So we had, initially the goal was to hire this rather, really famous person who knows Query Store from this really expensive consulting place to teach us when we started out on the route of exploring query store in deeper, for deeper usage. And we got that person is very well known to be a great teacher and everything. We got a great quote, a quote that was really very high, too high for our budget. Went back and forth for some time, and my boss said, don't, this is going to wipe out most of our training budget, and I'm not sure if we want to drop all the money on. None of you can go to conferences or anything, and I'm not sure you want that either. So yeah, I was kind of sad and disappointed. And Grant at that time was writing this book on Query Store with Tracy, and we were talking about something else, and I kind of brought it up that we were looking for somebody to teach us more the nuances of Query Store. And we got a quote from this other person that we couldn't really afford and all that. I just dropped it casually, and it didn't even cross my mind that he could be a potential candidate for that. But he presented himself, and he said, me, you have heard me teach, and I can do a decent job teaching. Plus, I know you guys are looking into doing DevOps and Git and all that kind of stuff. So I know some of that too. I can add value here, and here are all the things here I can teach in addition to Query Store. So, would you consider me for this? And, I was really impressed at the way he approached that problem, is how he understood that, where he could add value, and he came in and he gave a quote that was like totally reasonable for our budget. So I took it to our boss and I said, I know him to be an excellent teacher, and I think we're going to enjoy having him here. And we brought him in, and boy, the guy was a hit. Everybody loved him. And he thought, yeah, so that's one way to approach consulting, is just not to come across as terribly pushy or anything, but this shop could use my skills in all these different ways, not just this one thing they're looking at. So if I position myself like that, maybe they'll like me. And I keep saying that story everywhere because he was, to be honest, he was kind of scared because he knew a lot of us, and he knew Kevin was here. He knew Andrew Prusky was here. So he was like, all these people are brilliant, and I don't think I know as much as they do and all that. But he still came in and delivered what he knew and did a fine job with that.
He did. He did a really good job.
Yeah, and that's part of the point is just basically, we all have something to share.
Mm-hmm.
When I left Denver and moved out to Raleigh, I had one of the guys come up to me that I had gotten him into the leadership of the local group, and he came in and told me, he said, "You are the reason I am where I am and how I advanced." And I'm totally going blank on his name right now, but all of you guys know him because he's out in the community. He's great at PowerShell and stuff. Works for Rubinic Cube or whatever. So you never know what and when he first started, I said, I learned something from you, even though he was brand new in SQL Server, and he was impressed that I had learned something from him. So, and we all do, because we share. That's the beautiful part, and will be the sad part if the community, something does happen to the community. That'd be the sad part about the community, but I'm sure we'll continue to go in other avenues, because that's the best part about this community, is it is a family, and we help each other along. Kevin, sorry, we totally diverted you off your whole topic tonight.
Now I have to change topics. I don't have a segue for that. So here's my hard segue. Next topic. SQL Server Management Studio now installs Azure Data Studio as of 18.7. And this is, speaking of community, this has caused a bit of consternation. The idea here is, you install SQL Server Management Studio. Up till now, SSMS, Azure Data Studio, install them separately, update them on different cadences, use them differently. They're different products. And as of 18.7, Azure Data Studio is being considered a requirement for SQL Server Management Studio. Although, interestingly, you can uninstall Azure Data Studio after the fact. But they're coming at this with the idea that, there will be some functionality that's just going to be in Azure Data Studio. This is where the product teams are really focusing. But Management Studio has about a 15-year head start on it in terms of development time. So there are a lot of things that are in SSMS that are not in Azure Data Studio, or if they are, they're half-baked and aren't quite ready yet. Like, for example, breeding execution plans. Almost anything that's DBA centric as opposed to developer centric, you're going to find very limited on Azure Data Studio at this point. So there are advantages to using Azure Data Studio. The extension world is so much easier than Management Studio. Their integration with notebooks is pretty solid. Anders says, I don't want Azure Data Studio on my servers yet. And I get that. That's a fair point. I would generally agree that on the servers, I don't want Azure Data Studio at all. Because, hey, I'm now installing Python. I'm now installing other things that I have to keep up to date. Things that might potentially have security ramifications. I don't want that stuff on servers. On my desktop, it's a different story. I have ADS installed there. I have ADS on this machine. When I do demos here, I do try to use Azure Data Studio because I can zoom in and zoom out so much more easily.
The one thing that probably concerns me more, or not really concerns me, but when they took SQL Server Management Studio and they took it out of the SQL Server product, because you were basically only getting an update to SSMS every time they released SQL Server on-prem, right? So they took it out so they could release it in Cadence. Now all of a sudden you're saying, okay, Azure Data Studio was at a much faster clip of releases than SQL Server Management Studio. So does that mean we're going to start seeing SQL Server Management Studio come out a lot faster? And is it going to be more buggy? But then again, to your point, I don't think they're thinking about it, or maybe we're just wrong, Kevin, in the fact that we're even installing SSMS or Azure Data Studio even on a server. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe, and I would say for performance purposes, we probably should always be connecting to it remotely, not on the server itself.
Yeah, I would say please don't install SSMS on servers themselves. That's not a great thing to do. And Anders is he's gonna contradict and say something. I won't assume his contradiction, but
well, you know that I personally still today have installed SSMS on all my servers. There are sometimes some things that I just go ahead and log into the server to look at. I will never run Profiler on there, but you've got and I don't know really why I do that, because I can always connect remotely. There's never a reason I can't connect remotely. So think of it more security purposes. Why is it there? Maybe as an auditor, they should write you up and say no. All right, what does Anders say?
Can you even install SQL Server Configuration Manager without it? And I'm pretty sure that comes with the installation of SQL Server, not Management Studio.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Correct.
I had a VM that didn't have SSMS, and I was using it for Polybase demos. So yeah, that's separate. That comes with Management Studio. I could see, so a couple of reasons where I could see, here's why you might want to install SSMS. Maybe if you need to use the DAC.
But they put SQL Server data tools now within Azure Data Studio. Again, I haven't vetted it as much or at all, and we use it quite heavily. We use the DAC quite heavily.
Really, you
So
use the DAC?
the DAC.
The dedicated, not DAC packs, dedicated administrative connection.
Oh, you're talking about dedicated. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm thinking the DAC pack.
Okay, yeah. Acronym overload. It's a thing.
Yeah, we're on acronym overload.
Okay.
But yeah, is that even available in Azure Data Studio?
To do a DAC connection?
Yeah.
Maybe. I think you can do it. So you can do it via SQL command. You can do it via OSQL, I think. And granted, if you go with OSQL, now you're talking about, oh, well, I need to install Python. The SQL Server CLI is a Python-based CLI.
Yeah.
So I'm basically saying that in general, I'd rather have a server have SQL command, but not Management Studio. And I'd rather clients have Management Studio. And if you need to have a jump box in the same network that's running on the same ESX hosts, okay. But I don't know that there are too many cases where I need to have client tools installed on the server. Laziness is understandable.
Unless you don't have a jump box.
If you don't have a jump box, if you're having to deal with servers where there's no good intermediary, maybe, but I don't know. Solomon, I want to see what Solomon says, because he's saying SSMS on the server is probably still a good idea just in case. It's always good to have a connection to the service on the server hosting it. Also, having it local helps test Kerberos double hop issues because the login was done locally.
Bingo!
This is not to say that using SSMS on the server should be standard, but it's good to have options. All right, I can buy that.
I can buy that.
Although I would think that you could probably still do the same stuff just using SQL command.
The double hop may be a little hard to figure out.
Possibly. I want to say SQL command will use integrated authentication as well. That you just don't tell it, here's my username, my password. I don't know. I'd have to test. But yeah, I can understand the point. One issue is that I find is, well, keeping them all up to date, which, by the way, I think is why SSMS will not go to the same cadence as Azure Data Studio. With Management Studio, there is no auto update. If you update, you have to go and download the latest bits.
Right.
You can do the same stuff with SQL command, but then you actually have to know the T-SQL commands and syntax. Right. And I know that you're saying, and I know why you're saying that, and my snide response is, well, yeah, if you're a DBA, you should probably understand the language that you're working in.
Wait a minute.
I know.
Wait a minute.
I will.
How many commands have you forgotten? Because there's literally hundreds of them.
Yes, I'm okay with that, and also understanding that under pressure, things are tougher. When you have 3 levels of management sitting at your desk, do I know all T-SQL funkiness? No, but at the same time, well, what are you doing at this point? You create scripts, you practice, it's like this. I need to restore a backup immediately. Servers failed. Give me that backup as fast as possible. This is something where I would want a DBA to practice that scenario, to be able to type this out, or to know there is a script. Here's a commandlet which I have written which does this thing. Here's a script that has been written that does this thing. And be able to jump straight to that rather than fumbling around in a UI. So
correct.
The other side, it's a matter of preparation rather than tooling.
Well, it's you just said the word that's probably the best is that in a lot of professions, plumbing, electrical, whatever, you have a toolkit of the items you need to do your job, right? And that would be a good DBA as you move around is going to have a toolkit of basically things that you do all the time or that you might do all the time, and stuff. Not the obscure stuff, but you're definitely gonna have a toolkit, and you might put some obscure stuff in there. You might put something that maybe you've used it once or twice. I'm always of if you write it more than once, then you probably should put it in the script and save it somewhere because you're probably going to use it more again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm taking a hard line on this. Just a further discussion. I don't really have that hard of a line, but
I don't like it being there. I'm taking the hard line. I don't want it to be there. I don't want it to be tied together.
oh, okay. No, I'm talking about installing Management Studio on a server or relying on the UI
there.
in
Okay.
pressure situations. So, Solomon says DBAs should know all these things, but having a better UI can make debugging and fixing faster when time is of the essence. Management Studio isn't to make up for the lack of knowledge. It's to let someone with that knowledge do more faster or be more efficient. Sometimes. And then there's the case where I need to restore from a backup from a given point of time, and I have a lot of backups because we take log backups every minute, which is not an insane proposition. So that Management Studio UI, as it waits to refresh, or as you start having to check a bunch of different boxes, it's less efficient than having a PowerShell commandlet that says, go find all of these backups and generate a restore script for me.
You want me to really get Anders going? So let me get Anders going. So I'm the database architect, lead database architect and DBA of the company. And I take no backups of my SQL servers at all, period. And the reason I don't is because my boss from day one when I got hired had just a couple of months, 2 or 3 months before bought Commvault, and he does all the backups. And I've tried to arm wrestle them away and basically do the backups myself and then just have him basically back up, do whatever he wants with the files, but he's done the backups and I'm okay with that because I can see it in management or in MSDB. I can see that he's taken the backups because I've got the data within the database. So
yeah, and the good thing about Commvault is that you'll never have to worry about backups being like people being pressured when you're working with Commvault because they'll never restore fast enough for the pressure to matter. Like, well, look, this thing restores so slowly. Just go home.
We need to restore? Talk to my boss.
So. I mean, there's that. And if they start sitting at your boss's desk, like, look, Commvault's slow. It'll take a while. Just go take a break somewhere.
Yeah.
And so Solomon says, okay, for that particular scenario of a complex restore, use SQL Command or PowerShell, but for others, Management Studio should be an option. Yeah. Oh, I completely agree. Now, the question is, why does it have to be on the server as opposed to on your machine?
Where's your backup files? Your backup files could be on network.
Correct. It depends on where you can access your backup files from.
Yeah,
I don't think it matters.
Files could be in Azure Blob Storage. They could be in a lot of different locations now.
Yeah, I just don't think that matters. Backup should always be on the local machine, Anders says. There you go. So again, I am taking this as playing devil's advocate because in reality, if you said I install SSMS on my servers, I would say, yeah, that's okay. I'm not really saying this is a horrible idea, but I am going to try to drive the conversation as far as I can. In case you're not at your machine at a particular moment, but you do have VPN or remote desktop access. Well, but then again, it'd still be better to go to a jump box. I'm not using resources on a potentially busy server.
It's interesting because the more I think about this conversation as we've been having it, I would turn around and basically, if I was auditing you and I was basically looking at PI or HIPAA data or anything like that, I would basically say there's no reason, because they basically told us when I worked for the credit card company, if you don't use the service, like for example, analysis services or whatever the case may be, reporting services, SSIS, then you do not install that particular feature of SQL Server. So
Yeah.
they would come and say basically probably the same thing about SSMS. Don't install it. If you can get to it remotely, don't install it.
That's fair, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best case for I need to install this on the server. Testing Kerberos is a good example. That is a good example.
Yes.
Using the DAC in very complicated situations, yeah, maybe so. Short of everything falling apart, I'd still rather have the client be separated from the server. About the only scenario I could think of is DAC can be done via SQL command. Yeah, it can. Like the scenario that I can think of where I'd really be pushed over the edge and say, yeah, go for it and install, would be we can do something on this machine, but it cannot connect to other machines, except of course from whatever computer you're accessing it from.
Well, and a good example of that one, Kevin, is we have an obfuscation server that's very, very, very locked down. It can only get to a few places. You have to have a special login and get to it and stuff. And that's one that when you get the files from production that are not obfuscated, and during that short time frame before it gets obfuscated, you might not want someone accessing the data on that particular server.
That could be, yeah. Now, another example that I can think of is if you're talking physical hardware. So you have the physical server, and you might install Management Studio on it so that somebody physically in the data center with a hookup and a local keyboard and monitor and mouse could use Management Server or SSMS, Management Studio, excuse me, to work with problems in extreme scenarios. And
how many of your data centers though are where you can physically walk into them?
Oh, I can't.
Yeah, I can't walk into mine. Mine's in the south side of Denver.
But if you're talking server rack in a company, you go back. This scenario is probably a little dated at this point.
Quite a bit dated. Most of our servers are either now in a colo somewhere or they're in the cloud.
Yeah.
They're not in a physical office somewhere. People don't have data centers in the same building a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. No, that's long gone.
Yeah, long gone.
Yeah.
But in any event, back to Management Studio and ADS. Yeah, there are some organizational concerns. ADS does obviously update more frequently. It updates monthly. Management Studio, more like a quarterly or semi-annually cadence.
They were going pretty fast there for a little while when they first broke it apart, but they've slowed down a lot.
Yeah, and just the process of building, and also, I'll bet you, there are a lot more people on recent versions of ADS than there are on recent versions of Management Studio, because you have to manually update for Management Studio. So a lot of people probably have 18.1, 18.2, 18.0, 17, even 16 on machines.
Now, when we're talking about this new product, off the point of having them together, did you hear that they now have a profiler for the events?
Yeah, extended events.
Extended events. Yeah.
I've
So
actually
they're
ranted
building
about
like
it.
a profiler so that, so all of us that will not get away from SQL Profiler, they're finally building something to satisfy us.
So I've actually ranted about this on a prior episode of Shop Talk that I hate the name
Yeah.
because it is a perfectly reasonable tool, the extended events profiler. If they just called it something else, I would be fine with it. But because they call it profiler, like, oh, it's the X events profiler. Yeah, so open up profiler and then you get back to, oh, see, profiler's fine. You extended events people just need to give it up. So Anders asked, the main question is, why bundle them?
Right.
And
right.
Mala did mention this before stream and also in chat here that Management Studio is bundled with a lot of things. We just mentioned profiler, a replication monitor,
Right.
the distributed replay agent,
availability group monitor dashboard.
Right.
Yeah, but never with another editor. Yeah, this is getting a little bit more complicated. I mean, you could go back to SQL Server 2000, back when it was what, Enterprise Manager and was it Query Manager?
Query
optimizer,
wasn't it?
Optimizer, yeah.
Okay.
Query optimizer.
Yeah.
Yep. And Anders just typing the same thing while we were talking about it. Yeah, you're kind of going a little bit back to those days, and I'm not sure that that's a great thing. Why bundle them?
My fear would be is as you go forward, is kind of like you were talking earlier, Kevin, is basically is if we go to a new version of Azure Data Studio, is it going to possibly break something that maybe they're in mid-flight in SSMS or whatever, and stuff, because they don't quite handle their code properly.
Yeah, as you link them up more and more, you raise that risk. Also, you can ask the why, what's the imperative behind forcing a link, and officially, the official reason we get from Microsoft is we should start treating these as one product. I don't think I'm going to be able to treat them as one product. They're
not one product.
They are not one product.
Pretty strongly. That part I disagree. I don't mind the linking of the two necessarily. I don't think it's a huge hassle to me personally to choose which one I want to use, but they're not one product.
I think there might be overall an ego issue here, is because we're not going over to Azure Data Studio fast enough from SSMS, that they're trying to drag us kicking and screaming.
I think that may be a factor. Andrew says here they want to be able to say we have 15 million ADS installs instead of a few hundred thousand.
That makes sense actually. That makes sense actually. Yeah.
What's that? The install base?
That's a marketing reason.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could believe that. And maybe if you gave it a couple more years of development and really solidified the products more, then there'd be a lot less anger about this.
Yeah.
I think where my shop is coming from, and of course, we've talked about this before, I've got to get Kerberos turned on before I can even do it, but we are becoming or have become a Mac and Windows shop. So, having Azure Data Studio for the Mac guys to be able to connect when they need to a QA SQL Server or whatever would be a nice thing to have. So from that perspective, I don't mind it.
Yeah, and as it develops, I do use it personally. Interestingly, in my consulting work, I'm more likely to use Azure Data Studio and Visual Studio Code. In my day-to-day, I'm using Management Studio and Visual Studio. So using the older products in work that I've been doing this same thing for several years versus throw me into a new situation. I'll say, yeah, I'll use this new stuff because it has like Visual Studio Code. Once you start getting and understanding what's going on, they have so many more extensions and so much more capability that it makes development easier, especially if you're multi-platform. You're multi-language and multi-platform.
Right. You probably never thought we would spend the vast majority of the hour on these two things. So
I did
here
not.
we are.
We didn't even talk about the main thing that I was going to talk about this week, but that's all right.
That's okay, Kevin. No
we'll
problem.
hit it next time.
Find another slot for that.
Speaking of next time, since we are at the hour, our plans next week: no shop talk, no user group meeting. It's past Summit, so we're going to take that week off altogether. The week of the 16th and 17th, we will have shop talk on the 16th. And on the 17th, Tracy is presenting. The meeting has gone up on Meetup. So we will be up there for Monday and Tuesday. Monday the 23rd, so the Monday of Thanksgiving, probably not going to have shop talk.
Tracy's presenting on what, Kevin?
Good question. I'll have to go back and check. Because she put up the meeting, and that's all I remember. So no shop talk on the 23rd. Yes, shop talk on the 30th. So we're going to do every other week for the month of November. And with that, we're going to wrap things up for this evening. Thank you, everybody in chat, for coming on in. Thank you, Tom and Mala. And we'll catch you next time, 2 weeks from now.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye. Good night, everyone.